This guy is Lee, a medical student. Despite this, he has always been interested in ABs, a civilization thriving thousands of years ago in the desert before suddenly vanishing. Not long ago, the quicksand revealed its ruins, which also showed the identity of the king of this empire. Lee and a group of explorers were heading there. He woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom but ended up getting lost in the vast ruins. He took out his phone to call for help, but there was no signal. Suddenly, he spotted a group of people digging for something. He cautiously approached. They turned out to be a group of gravediggers. Lee hurried back to alert the explorers, but one of them noticed him and hit him with a bat. Some time later, he regained consciousness and found himself trapped in a stone coffin. The thieves planned on burying him alive. He manically smashed the coffin and cried for help, but no one could hear him. Blood dripped from his hands and accidentally landed in the coffin on a strange magic circle. The circle lit up as if he had activated some sort of mechanism. God finally heard his cries and the coffin opened. He managed to climb out, though with lots of struggles. In front of him stood a stone statue. He curiously approached to examine it. The statue looked just like a real person, but he found that person eerily familiar. It was like they had met before. He couldn't help but touch the statue's face before suddenly realizing he didn't have time to examine it. He needed to get out as soon as possible. After he left the tomb, the statue's face, which was covered in Lee's blood from his hand, suddenly cracked, from which a beauty emerged. On Lee's part, he was calmly walking out of the tomb when he unfortunately encountered the thieves again. How did he get out? Get him. The two thieves who spotted Lee started attacking. But he could easily take out one guy with just a move. The other, seeing his mate so easily defeated, couldn't even move. Lee wanted to get out of there and call the police, but the thieves stopped him with their weapons. They quickly surrounded him. Lee slipped and fell. He thought to himself, "It's over for me." One of the thieves slashed his back with a knife. The moment he wondered if that was how he would die, he heard a loud whoosh. A figure appeared, wielding a sword and killing all of the gravediggers. Lee was terrified. The stone statue is alive. That's the statue in the tomb. The statue deleted the thieves from the face of the earth, after which it turned its head and looked at him, who was sweating out of anxiety. Just as he thought he was this weird statue's next target, "He's going to kill me," he suddenly felt a gentle hand caressing his face. He collected himself and opened his eyes to look at the man in front of him. On this statue's face was a tender smile. He gently looked at Lee, and from the movement of his lips, he seemed to be saying, "Long time no see." That smile, those eyes, and that face stunned Lee. His heart couldn't help but flutter. That was the first time he ever met this strange guy, and it was also the beginning of their story. Then Lee fainted. When he regained consciousness, he found out that he had already been brought to the hospital by the explorers. He had been in a coma for the past week. The area where he got lost at the ruins was yet to be mapped. Strangely enough, when he asked everyone about the human statue near the coffin, no one seemed to have seen it. The days after that, he always had the same weird dream about a man identical to that statue. He always felt like someone was watching him. But even if he looked everywhere, he couldn't seem to find anything. He blamed his tense nerves for it. Today, like any other day, Lee was on his way back home after a long day, but his mind seemed to be somewhere else. He was still thinking about what had happened at the ruins as well as that moving statue. Suddenly, a car appeared out of nowhere and almost hit him. Luckily, someone managed to pull him away from the car. They both fell on the pavement and the car sped up past them. He turned around to thank his savior to find out that this was none other than that stone statue in the tomb. He thought to himself, "Why is he here? That day at the tomb, he didn't hurt me, and now there he is, saving me. Can't he be protecting me?" The statue seemed more than happy to see him and kept trying to signal something with its gestures. Lee asked the statue, "What do you want to say?" The statue didn't get the chance to answer before he was stormed with a million other questions. "Do you want to explain why you helped me? Why did you follow me? Are you some sort of deity?" He asked all the questions that had been bugging him, waiting for an answer. The statue wanted to give him answers, but words couldn't seem to escape his mouth. Lee sat down next to the pond, his heart sunken with sadness. He knew Rocky always followed him like a silent protector, but he didn't know why he avoided him. He decided to take a bet. 1, 2, 3. As he expected, Rocky immediately came to the rescue. Rocky hurriedly brought Lee to safety, but he soon found himself locked up by him. Lee was about to take him home again, but Rocky shook his hand off. Lee turned around and found that Rocky had cracks all over his arms. He worriedly lifted his shirt to check. His chest also had big holes. He asked, "Why did this happen? Are you hurt? Why didn't you tell me?" He recalled all the times Rocky lost control, trying his best to not hurt him. He asked, "Is this related to your losing control? Is it because you tried too hard to protect me? Is that why the cracks are here?" Rocky froze at his questions. His silence answered Lee's questions. He lowered his head. Seeing Lee so sad, Rocky tried to reassure him by swinging his arms around to show that he was well. Lee pulled Rocky toward himself. "You can't fool me twice. You don't want me to know you're dying? You just don't want to hurt me, right?" As he spoke, he pulled his shirt down to reveal his neck. "To me, it's just a small injury. It's nothing compared to you being broken, right?" Lee allowed Rocky to bite him. He thought if Rocky didn't have to control himself anymore and drank his blood, he could maybe feel better. Rocky squeezed his hands and recalled Lee's expression that night. He couldn't bring himself to hurt Lee. He couldn't bear to be looked at like that again. He stubbornly gave a bright smile, then took out an earring he made from the flower he grew. He was so excited to help Lee wear it. But his action couldn't soothe Lee. His mind was filled with anxiety and anger. He's about to die. Why is he still worrying about me? He threw the earring away and questioned Rocky. "I don't need this. No earrings, nothing. Don't play dumb with me. I need you to take care of yourself." Then he stormed off in anger, leaving Rocky behind. Rocky slowly picked up the earring. What Lee didn't know was Rocky didn't have much time left. He stormed off, but he soon regretted his decision and came back to find Rocky. He was worried about him. Luckily, Rocky was still there. But then the cracks had gotten to his face. The sight shocked Lee. Seeing Lee coming back, Rocky's face lit up and he walked over to Lee. But as he walked, his feet fell apart, making him lose balance and fell. Lee caught him midair. The stone on his face had started to break off. Lee panicked and kept trying to stop the pieces from falling, but his efforts were in vain. His voice trembled in fear. "Why? How did it get so serious? I was only away for a minute." "Just a minute." Rocky still looked at him and smiled. His eyes showed that he still desperately wanted to stay. But he knew his time had come. He reached out to put the earring on Lee's neck as a necklace. It reminded Lee of his hurtful words earlier. He wanted so badly to take those words back. This was probably the last gift from Rocky, yet he smiled at him while treasuring the earring. He said it looked beautiful and thanked him. Then he lowered his head and looked away. He didn't want to see Rocky disappear. He wanted Rocky by his side. Rocky lifted his face. In his last moments, he had no regrets. If anything, he longed to be with the person in front of him. He wanted to kiss Lee to tell him how much he loved him. But the kiss never reached Lee. In the quiet night, under the moonshine, Lee sat alone. All that was left of Rocky was some dust. Amidst the dust lay a gem. It was Rocky's heart. Lee hugged the heart gem, tears streaming down his face. If only I didn't run away. If only I realized his problem earlier. If only I realized my feelings. He was filled with regrets. If meeting Rocky was a miracle, could it happen again? Will I ever have him by my side again? The heart in Lee's hands suddenly started glowing. His body was almost swallowed in the light. Maybe the miracle could really happen twice. Amidst the blinding light, he saw a familiar figure. He knew who that was. It was the one he loved the most, the one he wished he could meet again. He rushed forward, trying to hug his love. "This is the gift I never had the chance to give you. Rocky, welcome back." But he couldn't be happy for long as an incredibly strong force pushed him away. Suddenly, someone approached them. He only heard a whoosh, and then, just as quickly as he appeared, the statue vanished. "Did you see anything?" "See what?" "I think there was a wisp of wind." Lee looked around and silently admired the statue's speed. When he got home, he found a bunch of forages at his doorstep, some wildflowers, pomegranates, grapes, and even some frogs and seashells. He knew those were gifts from the stone statue, but he pretended he didn't. "Wow. So cute? These are all mine?" At night, it started raining heavily. The statue quietly sat in front of the door. "This scene really breaks my heart." He looked just like a puppy getting caught in the rain. Crack! The door suddenly opened. The statue silently opened the door and sneaked inside. The house was so dark he couldn't see anything. The door suddenly shut behind him. "Where do you plan on running now?" So, the statue was finally caught. "Tell me, did you follow me from Ibiza? Why? Who are you?" If you don't tell me, I'll feed you some frogs, he said as he threatened the statue with a frog. The statue was so scared his eyes watered. The statue sobbed and struggled and tried to signal something again. Water on his body got everywhere. Lee thought to himself, he really can't talk, huh? Well, follow me, Lee said as he led the statue to the bathroom. As he cleaned the statue, he kept examining his body. Wow, his hair is so soft. His flesh really feels like stone. His eyeballs are soft, though. He kept touching and poking everywhere so quickly the statue started getting dizzy. His tongue and throat is rock hard, that's why he can't speak. He can move because his insides are soft tissue despite the hardened outer layer. He reached out to touch the statue's face. The statue gave him a silly smile resembling a dumb white husky. The rain was heavy and he didn't want to leave the statue out, so he agreed to let him stay for the night. What he didn't expect was one night extended to 2 days, 1 week, then 1 month. The stone statue also moved from the corner of the room to sitting on the bed next to him, then finally hugging him. He also noticed the statue's behavior and punished him for it. The statue was dumbfounded as he didn't understand why, yet he kept clinging on to Lee. Seeing Lee nodding off while reading, the statue gently carried him to bed and put a blanket on for him. Then he himself fell asleep next to the bed. Lee stole a glance at him. He thought to himself, having him around isn't so bad after all. Time flew by and just like that, they had spent 2 months together. Lee nicknamed the statue Rocky. He was studying the ancient rituals of Abe's people to learn more about Rocky and the reason why he was there. Suddenly, a petal fell on the book. It was from the flower Rocky grew. Lee watched him take care of it since it was only a seed and now the flower had bloomed. Rocky seemed sad when the petal fell off, so he tenderly touched his shoulder and comforted him. Beauty never lasts long. You can't preserve it forever. To lift Rocky's mood, Lee took him out for a walk. During the walk, he rambled on, this grass field is really quiet, plus it's not far from my dorm, so I come here almost daily. The gentle wind is really soothing too. He could sense that Rocky was keeping a distance, so he turned back to check on him. That was when he noticed Rocky's eyes looked quite strange. He was asking what was wrong when Rocky dashed toward him and bit his neck. He pushed Rocky away in panic. By then, Rocky had regained control over his body. The first thing he saw was Lee's terrified gaze. He realized what he had just done and turned around to run away. But Lee managed to clutch his shirt to stop him before fainting. Rocky panicked and quickly brought Lee home. Lee suffered a high fever for the following week. He was going in and out of consciousness, but he could vaguely see Rocky taking care of him. He could also see Rocky almost going crazy trying to resist something deep inside him. Sometimes he seemed so distant, but other times he held his hand firmly as if he was worried. Everything signaled to him that maybe it was time to let Rocky go. The next time he woke up, Rocky was nowhere to be found. The following days, Rocky seemed to go back to silently stalking him and keeping a safe distance from him. Every time he turned around, Rocky would run away. He was clearly so happy when we were together. Why is he hiding now? The guy in front of him looked at him in shock and coldly asked, "An assassin? Take him away." "Yes, your majesty." Immediately, 2 men pushed their spears against his neck and escorted him away. This is the... Just then did Lee realize something was off. He looked around. A giant stone tablet was pushed off its pedestal according to the king's request, revealing the structures behind. It's the Bangladesh Palace. I'm back to the Abe's ruins. No, this palace is so lively. I went back in time. So the person in front of me, he's the emperor. After the ceremony, Lee was escorted into the palace. The inside looked glamorous. King Mahimus sat arrogantly on his throne. How can Rocky be the king? The stone statue in the tomb was the king? This guy looks identical to Rocky. Lee was still deep in his thoughts when the king coldly asked, "What are you looking at?" The guard shouted, "Who are you? Why are you on the palace's watchtower? What is your purpose here? Answer now." The guy with the fan next to him continued, "Your Majesty, look at his costume. He keeps looking around. Don't you think it's strange? I can't tell them I'm from the future. They'll kill me. I didn't come all the way here to die. I came here to see him, but now he's still a human. He wouldn't recognize me. It's okay. People can't change that easily. I don't want to lose him again. I just need to find a chance to be with him and bridge our distance." Well, that's what Lee thinks, but judging by the expression on this emperor, I don't think it would be so easy. He stood up and approached Lee. He reached out. This scene reminded Lee of his time with Rocky. Those hands had helped him so many times, so he instinctively reached out for them. He thought to himself, lucky me. He's still just as gentle. But he was yet to touch his hand when Rocky received a knife from his guards. He didn't understand. The man in front of him looked at him, his eyes resembling that of the devil's, and smiled sinisterly. He immediately felt a sharp pain on his hand. The king stabbed him. Blood from the wound splashed everywhere. Don't you even think about touching me, filthy assassin? Know your place. After all, you only need your mouth for interrogation. All the other parts are redundant. What's that look you were giving me? Maybe I should get rid of your eyes too, huh? He pointed the knife directly at his face to threaten him. Just then did Lee realize the man in front of him was not his cute Rocky, but a tyrant. This must be a nightmare. The man he loved the most stabbed him with a knife. He woke up from a terrible dream. Ouch. It hurts. But someone changed my clothes and treated the wound. It doesn't look too bad. Thank God. There are guards outside. This isn't good. They thought I'm an assassin and locked me up. And here I am thinking going back in time and meeting him was a miracle. Now it's more like a punishment for missing the chance to be with Rocky. That's why I have to face this tyrant now. Maybe it's better if we never meet again. Seeing him only makes my heart ache. I need to figure out how to survive here, then find a way to go back. I guess this is like a holiday to Ebis. Lee was crouching on the floor trying to find an escape when a red-haired man opened the door. He was the one holding the fan for the emperor. He approached Lee. You were awake. Being treated so badly must have scared you to death, huh? Such a pity. But the king gave you to me. Don't worry. Your pretty face will save you from the dark prison. Just a second ago, this guy seemed like he cared about Lee, but the next, his eyes turned devilish, but now you want to escape? What is this guy saying? Does he want to keep me as his mistress or something? If I want to leave, I must show him I'm innocent. But this guy doesn't look gullible. I can't afford to reveal my true identity. Maybe it's best to play dumb. I'm sorry, I seem to have amnesia. Oh, my amnesia? Such a shame. You might never be proved innocent then. Lee was surprised. He didn't expect the man to actually believe that. But your wound seems to be well cared for. Did you do it yourself? Can people with amnesia really do that? That's weird. Oh, I wouldn't call it well cared for. I just slapped some random cloth on it. His acting was so fake that both of them cringed. All right, if your memory is lost, then these things are probably useless, right? The guy said as he pulled out Lee's necklace. Lee froze at the sight of it. He couldn't think of a better answer, so he had to play along. That thing. I don't even remember I had it. It looked so dirty, not to mention the blood on it. Wouldn't it bring bad luck if I carry it around? Did I always wear it? Oh, fine then. If you don't need it, I might as well throw it away. The guy said as he tossed the necklace away and left the room. After he left, Lee tried to look outside through the door crack and tried to reach for the necklace. It was the only thing he had left. Suddenly, he felt someone stepping on his hand. It's clearly important to you. If you keep this up, you'll only hurt yourself more. The red-haired guy smiled cunningly as if he's provoking Lee. Lee angrily snatched the bracelet from him. Give it back. He was immediately pushed to the ground by the guards. Lee asked in anger, what do you want? Nothing. You won't speak now, so I'll just lock you up in there. You'll give in eventually. Moreover, you chose the wrong guy to lie to. If I can't force the truth out of you, how can I call myself Everty the First, the right hand of the emperor? In the distance stood the tyrant staring at him emotionlessly. Then he turned around and left. Lee was once again locked up in the prison. He silently cursed that cunning fox. His attention was soon drawn to the vase full of water by his side. It seemed he had a plan to escape. In another room, the red-haired man is greeting Emperor Mihimus. Your Majesty, I did as you requested. I locked him up and sent guards to watch his every move. Now we just have to wait for him to spit out the truth. The location and time he appeared were very special, too. You just ordered to move the worship stone, and then he appeared out of thin air not even 3 meters away from you. I think he's a spy from Busi or Jasop, but my informant says those are 2 opposing neighboring countries. Maybe those stubborn elders deliberately pushed that guy behind the stone as some sort of request from the deities to control you. It must have been those old bastards. Mihimus said as he used the heart-shaped gem Lee brought with him when he time-traveled to crush a hazelnut. The red-haired guy panicked. Hey, easy there. Isn't that the gem that guy brought with him? It looks precious. Are you really using it as a nutcracker? Well, it's pretty convenient. It's mine now anyways. The redhead said, don't you think the shape and color look interesting? And I have a question. That guy is quite different from other assassins, but I don't think he's so remarkable that you have to pay so much attention to him. You usually just kill them off. When he appeared, the wind suddenly rose, blowing sand everywhere. No one could see anything. He could have easily stabbed me. But he didn't. Just know that he's really strange. There must be some sort of conspiracy behind him. I almost forgot that. When that dude appeared, he rushed to hug and kiss the emperor. Oopsie. Maybe that's why he didn't kill him. The redhead covered his mouth in shock and thought to himself. It was surely entertaining for me. Mahima stood up and said, keep a close eye on him. There must be guards around him at all times. Oh, and where did you get that Everdy the First, the right hand of the emperor title from? I'm a perverted tyrant who doesn't know common sense, after all. Then he left. The redhead waved him goodbye, his expression looking bittersweet with a hint of suffering. Yes, your majesty. Anything for you. He was chilling when a guard rushed to tell him something. Boss, we're in trouble. That lanky spy committed suicide. The smile immediately washed off his face. What? He rushed to the site, shouting loudly, what do you mean suicide? What is he doing? The guard followed him. No. He used a broken piece of glass and took one of our guys hostage. He requested to tell you that he committed suicide to lure you here. He said he needed to tell you something. The guard said as he buried his face in his hand. Sorry, boss. We are such failures. The redhead was stunned. He didn't know what Lee wanted to tell him so desperately.